Lyfgenia and Casgevy. These are two recent gene therapy treatments that were approved by the FDA to tackle sickle cell. My name is Coben, and I have sickle cell, and I am going to examine these two treatments to determine their viability as a potential cure. Now that introductions are out the way, you may watch this and not know what sickle cell is, and you may not know what the heck that Lyfgenia or Casgevy is and how it helps my situation, or even why you should care. So if you're watching this and don't know what sickle cell is, it doesn't surprise me because it only affects like 100,000 of us in the US. If you're black, it's only 1 in 365 born that get sickle cell. So this is really just a rare disease to be so committed to be finding a cure for, but it affects enough people that it definitely needs the attention and the medical funding to do the research to get this cure. The cause of sickle cell is a genetic mutation in the blood, specifically the protein responsible for carrying oxygen called hemoglobin. And there are different variations of this mutation that is what determines how severe your case of sickle cell is. So the most common two variations of sickle cell are HBSS, which is hemoglobin SS. S is basically the sickle cell hemoglobin, so S stands for sickle hemoglobin, and you get them from both parents. So the same as if you're a man, you're an XY chromosome, so you get an X from one parent and a Y from the other parent, or I guess Y from your father and the X from your mother. You're a man, and then XX, you're a woman. Same with hemoglobin SS, you get one S from your one parent and then the other S from the other parent. So that means that basically either one of your parents have sickle cell, or both of them have the trait, but they just based on biology and Punnett square logic, you get the short end of the stick, and that 25% chance that you do get the disease is what happens to be your situation. So there's the other common one, which is SC, and that SC is just a mild case of sickle cell. So S is just the sickle hemoglobin, and then C is a milder mutated hemoglobin. This person may experience not as severe pain, or not as not as potent of symptoms, or as strong of a symptoms as the most severe case of sickle cell, but they still may require lifelong medical attention for people with SC, the SC gene. The other one is S beta thalassemia. So the other gene that one of the parents may have that passes down to you is a gene called beta thalassemia, and there are two variations of beta thalassemia. There is the beta thalassemia 0 and then the beta thalassemia plus. The 0 is the most severe, and it's akin to just having the SS, and then the plus is a lesser version, and is basically akin to having SC. And so I'm not sure what the difference for each of these are. I would need to do some empirical research to determine which is worse for just in general pain and symptoms. But I'm assuming that just because it's a very straightforward common thing, that SS is the most severe form of sickle cell, but I may be wrong. For me, I have SS, so I have the worst variation of sickle cell that causes frequent pain crisis, and that is part of why I'm looking for a cure. And then just to get this wrapped up, there is a different type or different genetic code that you can get from both parents, that still you have the sickle cell gene, but you may be asymptomatic. And this is called the sickle cell trait. And the sickle cell trait has hemoglobin A, which is normal hemoglobin. So everyone else on earth that doesn't have sickle cell has the A form of hemoglobin in their body, and they have the S from another parent. So they have one parent gave them the A, one parent gave them the S. And so most people that have the trait, just like my sister, she has the trait. She is asymptomatic, so she's never been to the hospital. She's never had to get blood transfusions. She never been to the emergency room. She never had to take hydroxyurea. She never had to do any of those things because she has the trait. But for who she marries and who she has kids with, she will definitely have to check her partner for the trait, because that, like I said, if you get the Punnett square, you lose the Punnett square lottery, you may get the disease if you are born to two parents who have the trait. But this is just the basic synopsis of these different types of sickle cell and what the underlying cause of these mutations are. So next we're going to speak on the Lyfgenia and Casgevy trials and what the trials were seeking to cure or seeking to alleviate with sickle cell and their results. Before getting into the Lyfgenia and the Casgevy trials, I need to explain to you guys a type of hemoglobin that isn't mentioned in the intro, but it is a very important and pivotal piece into sickle cell research and finding a cure. This type of hemoglobin is called fetal hemoglobin. It is produced by babies, and it is produced by babies up until 6 months of age, until it is, depressed or it tapers off, and it is then replaced by adult hemoglobin. The reason these two are switching is because it is a natural progression in the baby's development, and it's happening for not just sickle cell patients, but it happens in every person, in every human. It has to switch between fetal hemoglobin and adult hemoglobin. But like I mentioned in the intro, a lot of people with sickle cell have their adult hemoglobin mutated, so that is what causes these symptoms to occur. And so usually for people with sickle cell, their symptoms start to manifest somewhat around the age that their fetal hemoglobin switches with their adult hemoglobin. And for sickle cell research, a lot of scientists and doctors are looking to increase the amount of fetal hemoglobin in the sickle cell patient, because it isn't deleted in the body after 6 months, but it is just suppressed, and it continues to get produced by the body into adulthood. It's just very low, and adult hemoglobin is what mainly the main source of hemoglobin for people in adulthood. But the prevalence of fetal hemoglobin, if raised, could cause people with sickle cell to have less pain crisis and less symptoms in general. So this is why fetal hemoglobin is very important to people with sickle cell. I have the pamphlet for Lyfgenia given to me by my doctor a couple weeks ago. And it has the steps that they did to, prove that they are a very qualified treatment for sickle cell. They and Casgevy both were approved by the FDA in 2023. So this is a very good breakthrough in gene therapy in general as a practice for scientists to cure whatever disease, but sickle cell specifically, because it's the most appropriate disease for using gene therapy as of right now. And so this kind of makes both of them pivotal. Like, this is a pivotal time for gene therapies, and these are the forerunners that are kind of pushing the line towards those things. And so the difference with Casgevy and Lyfgenia is in the way that they edit the gene. From what I've researched, the way that Casgevy edits the gene is by editing the gene directly, and the way that Lyfgenia edits the gene is not by editing the gene, but like replacing the gene. So the technology that Casgevy uses is called CRISPR, and the technology that Lyfgenia uses is called lintoglobin. I'm not sure if lintoglobin is a proprietary technology to Lyfgenia, but hey y'all, this is Coben from the future. While editing, I noticed that this is a slight blunder. Lintoglobin is just another name for Lyfgenia. And so Lyfgenia does not own lintoglobin because it is lintoglobin. And the technology that they use to edit the gene, I looked up on their website, is something called a lentiviral vector. And so I don't know, or I have limited knowledge of this, but they have the information on their website for you to know what that is. But the thing about Lyfgenia is that they just take your stem cells, custom edit them, and give them back to you. That is the impression that I got based on the research that I did. And I do know that CRISPR is not a proprietary technology to Casgevy. So Casgevy uses CRISPR, and CRISPR basically is just a tiny molecular pair of scissors that just goes into your DNA, cuts out the part where it's responsible for sickle cell, and then edits that part to replace the sickle cell with regular people DNA, and then just inserts it back. And then the like the lintoglobin from Lyfgenia, it goes and just takes out the whole thing and replaces it with a new thing of regular people DNA. So these are really the main differences in the mechanistics of the mechanisms, the processes of editing the genes in sickle cell patients. So Lyfgenia and Casgevy, after this main difference, basically the treatments and certain results are the same for both of these. So they basically, after this point, I'm gonna speak for just both of these in terms of the process that they take to get it, because from a sickle cell person's point of view, they are the same process to get both. The first thing, and I'm gonna go reference the pamphlet for you guys. The steps that are necessary to take Lyfgenia is a pre-treatment phase. And so the pre-treatment phase, is, step one, and it does require that you take chemotherapy to, not in the pre-treatment phase, but just that you understand that you do need to take chemotherapy during the process of getting Lyfgenia. And that's the same with Lyfgenia and Casgevy. So you can't just choose Casgevy because they don't require chemotherapy, because they do. And it's just which one do you want to take chemotherapy for is what the better question would be. How, which treatment is worth the chemotherapy? But the pre-treatment phase is basically before even, you start to consider taking Lyfgenia, they need you to be fully healthy. Your blood needs to not be sickled. Your blood needs to be at peak kind of just healthiness when it comes to not having any pain crises, but not necessarily have pain crises. The requirements to get Lyfgenia and Casgevy is you need to have 2 pain crises in the last 2 years. The last 2 consecutive years, you need to have 2 pain crises at minimum to be eligible to even receive these treatments. So let me just get that out the way. But with Lyfgenia, before getting the treatment, your blood needs to be healthy. So they want you to take blood transfusions before taking these the Lyfgenia treatment. And so does Casgevy. So Casgevy, this is the same with both. I'm not speaking with I'm not using one over the other. I'm just speaking for both of these at this point. So the pre-treatment is your blood needs to be healthy to even receive these therapies. So that's step one. Step two is that you go to like a special clinic and they collect your stem cells. And that process is called apheresis. And it's basically they just separate your blood from stem cell blood using a special machine. I've been to like a blood testing lab before. I see like they have like all these machines and stuff that they use to measure different blood levels and the, effects and whatever. So I'm assuming something similar to what those machines in there look like, but I could be wrong. So I'm not sure what the machine or what the process of apheresis means or entails. So, that is a question that you should ask your hematologist or your care provider. And then the third step is the Lyfgenia creation or Casgevy creation. So they basically take your stem cells and then edit the gene that's responsible for sickle cell, replaces that or edits that to be regular. And so that takes 10 to 15 weeks. So you're not a participant or you're not a, observer in any of this. You can just go home and just do whatever during this process, and they will probably reach out to you once the blood is ready to be transfused back in. And that is step 4. Before the blood is transfused back in, it's time to do the chemotherapy, which that's the most most dreaded part, in my opinion, is the chemotherapy. And this takes 4 days plus 2 days of recovery, so it's about a week of chemotherapy. But how much damage that does to someone's body, I have no idea. And it's just very unfortunate that that's the requirement, but it's a necessary evil, if you will, just to get the cure to sickle cell. But hopefully in the future there will be more therapies and more treatments that doesn't require chemotherapy. But for now, these two are the only FDA-approved ones, and they are the only they both require chemotherapy. So the next step after the getting the Lyfgenia and the Casgevy made is the chemotherapy. So it may not be possible after chemotherapy. You may be impotent. That's one side effect of the chemotherapy, is you may not be able to have kids. So they will recommend that you freeze your eggs or your sperm. That is another just unfortunate, but and I keep saying unfortunate, but it's like I can't really grasp the concept of being impotent yet because I have not been there. So I'm not just trying to passively sweep it under the rug. I know it's a very difficult decision, but I'm just not there yet, and I definitely would need to have a long conversation with my family and my doctor before even considering this treatment, just so that I know, okay, if I'm doing this, I need to do these steps beforehand so I'm prepared after the fact, so that if I want to have kids, I will be able to do so. But that is a side effect, and that is possible with the chemotherapy, unfortunately. So after the chemotherapy is the infusion of the new blood cells into your body. So you go to the different clinic. It's a qualified the qualified center, and they give you an IV, and you may receive from 1 to 4 bags, at least for Lyfgenia. I don't know what the number of bags of blood you will receive for Casgevy, but I'm assuming they do the same, roughly around 2 to 3 for Casgevy, but it does vary for the person. So depending on how much blood you need or much blood you regularly have, it depends. And then after the infusion of the new just stem cells and just the new blood is the recovery and the long-term follow-up. And so the 3 to 6 weeks of monitoring at the clinic or the hospital, you will have to stay the whole time. You aren't able to leave. And then that's followed up by a long-term follow-up for at least 15 years. And this is with Lyfgenia. So with Casgevy, I'm not sure how long their follow-up period is, but I do think that it will be at least a good decade. So with Lyfgenia, you will be at the hospital for 3 to 6 weeks for monitoring and just making sure that the stem cells were properly engrafted, which engrafted means that it's it assimilated back into your body and your body did not reject the stem cells, and your body has adopted these new stem cells, and the stem cells are making even more stem cells with the actual correct normal hemoglobin that isn't sickled. And so that's what engraftment is. So that's what the doctors are actually like keeping you that long for, is that they make sure that it was engrafted properly, that your body did not reject these new stem cells and the new blood. And so that's the step 6 in getting Lyfgenia and or Casgevy. So this was a lot for me when I was researching. This was a lot to kind of understand and take in, especially with the side effects. But I did not mention with the Lyfgenia that their efficacy, that's another thing. I forgot to even mention the efficacy. The efficacy of Lyfgenia is 88%. 88% efficacy. So they both Lyfgenia and Casgevy tested if after treatment the patient did not have a pain crisis for at least 12 consecutive months. This is Coben from the future. What I did not mention in the video is that Lyfgenia and Casgevy measuring their outcomes based on if the person didn't have sickle cell crisis is not getting at the root cause of sickle cell. Like I mentioned in the previous part, fetal hemoglobin, more so than no pain crisis, is a better way of measuring prolonged health post a cure. This chart tells us that Vertex Pharmaceuticals, aka Casgevy, was making the genes elevate their hemoglobin F, and Bluebird, which is Lyfgenia, was trying to decrease the hemoglobin S. What is and isn't a cure to sickle cell and what numbers and metrics to determine it by is very debated by the medical field. And these two companies doing what they do is just a start, so it's not the full picture. And what this article by my old hematologist suggests is that a proper cure may be turning sickle cell disease blood into sickle cell trait blood. And so what that looks like and the implications of it may need to be researched further, but I somewhat agree with this take. So based on that metric, 88% of the patients did not have a pain crisis for the 12 consecutive months. And so, but with Casgevy, I do know that that number was 93%. And so the higher efficacy for Casgevy is marginal. I like how, 88 to 93, that is marginal in terms of, because I do know that their test size, their size of cases was not different from each other. Like they were around 40 patients each for Casgevy and Lyfgenia. There were around 40 patients. So the marginal, like an 88 to 93, that's, like Lyfgenia had 4 people that had a pain crisis out of the total bunch that had a pain crisis, and then Casgevy had 2 people that had a pain crisis after in the 12-month period. So With Casgevy, it, I guess for the efficacy it is better, but then Lyfgenia is, not that bad or not that far behind. But the other thing with Lyfgenia that is not mentioned in this pamphlet is that they got the black box warning from the FDA for cancer and for blood cancer specifically, because some patients after taking Lyfgenia did develop blood cancer. Blood cancer is a big symptom of having like, if this is if this is common and if this repeats itself, the blood cancer related with Lyfgenia is a detrimental factor for having that be a treatment for sickle cell. And the possibility of and I read the research on the possibility of getting the blood cancer for Lyfgenia, and it's based on this one gene that is common for people with sickle cell but is turned off, called CHIP. And it's basically the likelihood of CHIP being dormant in your body before Lyfgenia and after is what will determine the likelihood of you getting blood cancer in the future. However, that's not, they say that that's not necessarily reliable evidence, just because it could change at any time. So it's a very very big concern with Lyfgenia. That's the one caveat with Lyfgenia, is that they have had people, 2 people have had blood cancer after having Lyfgenia. And I don't the time period for having the blood cancer. Blood cancer is blood cancer, so it's you had to take the chemotherapy to get Lyfgenia, and then you have to take the chemotherapy to cure the blood cancer after getting Lyfgenia. It may just be a very detrimental thing for someone. So but Casgevy, they did not get any cases of blood cancer. So the likelihood for blood cancer is possible with Lyfgenia. Other symptoms with Lyfgenia and Casgevy are the same, basically, that you get mouth sores, you get low white blood cell and platelet counts, you get some fevers and headaches, itching. But those are the general symptoms. How a lot of medications, they're not 100% side effect proof, at least in America, with these FDA-approved drugs. So that's the basics of just Lyfgenia and Casgevy. So this was just a way for me to give you information, and so you guys can make an educated decision on these 2 things. And I will link all the research that I've done in the description, so that you guys can see for yourself what these 2 products are and their results, and what you should do, make a decision based on that evidence. Let me just add that Casgevy and Lyfgenia are good starting points for the potential of gene therapy as a cure to sickle cell, but they're not the cure. And what I would suggest is that, given time, there is going to be a new potential treatment that cures sickle cells for real. And until that time comes, let us all keep hope. Let us all remain optimistic that on the horizon, there is something out there for us. And so with that said, that's the end of the video. And if you stayed this long, I appreciate you for watching. And I would appreciate you more if you would subscribe, like, and comment. And that's it. This video took a long time, so I would rather just end it here. Thanks.